And I think, okay, let's do this, Soumil.
Hmm.
Let's stop beating around the bush and let's get to Lando Norris. Apart from giving him a hug, is there any suggestion, any advice you'd like to give him, given that we're all armchair critics and keyboard warriors, and all of us is everyone's out on Twitter saying he should have put it, he was entitled, how could he say no to the team? What's your view? You've
Mm.
commentated on several races, like hundreds of them.
Yeah.
What is your view?
To put it simply, it comes down to what you're thinking in that moment. And in one way, you'd be very proud of his self belief to say that I can do this. But at the same time, you also have to wonder his self belief was sort of partly hidden away by the fact that he didn't know what conditions were coming on, right? Who would have forecasted that so quickly we would have so much rain in all the other parts of the circuit as well? And had it stayed as it were in the first couple of laps when Lando decided to stay out, then it would have perhaps potentially been a Lando Norris win because things were looking okay. But the fact that it changed so quickly, it was a point where McLaren had committed to staying out, and then things turned on them. Even Hamilton was reluctant. He said that, yeah, I don't think that's the right decision, but he still went ahead with it. McLaren gave Lando the chance. It's a sign of trust from the team. I'm sorry, and you love to see that. But I guess in this case, it's just a matter of judgment, and I wouldn't even call it bad judgment or something like that. It's just such a heat of the moment decision, and it's actually leading into a very interesting question we've got from Siddharth. He says, how difficult is it to make a call for inters when the conditions are changing? Siddharth Shah, of course, one of our very avid listeners and viewers. That's the point, Kunal. You can't tell when it's such a critical moment and there's a 7-time world champion behind you. You obviously back your instincts, and your instincts say you can do it. But clearly, the conditions turned away from him very quickly.
Samuel, you hit the nail right on the head, right? And I would say one of the first things Lando's done is he's owned up to his mistake. So he admits he made a mistake. And hey, guys, we all make a mistake. How many of us own up to it, right?
Hmm.
Of course, Lando then said that the team did not tell him that more rain was coming. We don't know the truth to that. Probably the team actually did not tell him that, and that's why Lando did what he did. And just how difficult is it for Lando Norris or any driver to make such a decision? Hey, when do I switch to the slicks, or when do I switch to the inters? Sorry, and uh, in the case of Lando, for all the other 19 drivers, it's a little easier, but not for Lando. He had
Hmm.
track position. He had the lead. He had Lewis chasing him down for victory. He was staring at his, first win after scoring his first pole position. So it's that factor was a little more difficult, which none of the other 19 drivers faced, mind you, right? And then it came down to the fact that his gut said, I can drive on slicks in this weather. And guys, remember, Formula One is what it is today because of gut, because of what
Yeah.
Soumil said, instinct. It is their gut that makes them drive those cars so quick. It is their instinct. It's not an engineer necessarily. It's what you feel on your lower back, just above your bum, right? That's what makes you drive faster. It's that gut that tells him, I can drive in these conditions. If these conditions stay as it is, I will drive. I will. If it's difficult for me, it's difficult for Lewis. We'll figure a way out. And let's not let's not hold Lando Norris, just because he trusted his gut,
Yeah.
literally. And let's applaud the fact that he trusted his gut. And of course it didn't work out, but hey, so many times in our lives it doesn't work out as well. And now I'm going to sound philosophical, right? But when it doesn't work out for us, and I don't know all the celebrities who tune into our show, but when it doesn't work out for us normal listeners and speakers, right? Our mistakes are not broadcast on live TV across the globe for millions of people
Yeah.
to dissect and give comments on. Yes, inexperience. Daniel Ricciardo actually turned around and said, "For me, no way I could have driven, so I made the decision to go on to the Inters." Again, it was easier for Daniel, given where he was. So he will learn from this mistake. Exuberance, the excitement, I'm in the lead, I don't want to let go of it, all of those things. But wasn't that literally the joy to watch? Because,
Yeah.
and I know I'm going on and on, I know I need to give some airtime as well, but imagine the other scenario. Imagine if Lando would have pitted and Lewis would have stayed out, right?
Mm.
Then suddenly we would have been like, great, Lewis's 7-time world champion experience, 100 race wins of experience made him stay out. So, the tables can turn either way. And just one last point, right? When could have Lando or should have Lando pitted? I think his best bet was pitting just when Lewis Hamilton pitted, right? That's conventional racing logic. Right? You just pits the next lap, and you're probably least impacted by then because Lewis is going to figure his tires out and so on and so forth. But I must say that conditions literally got so worse within one lap. And when you look at the tire history of all the drivers, there are drivers who pitted 2 laps later, like Fernando Alonso, and then he suddenly lost out on a lot of positions. So it was literally that moment. And Fernando said it was more on luck than on talent when it came to making the last 5 laps work in your favor. End of point. Thank you, Soumil.
That was such a good point. It really nailed on the head, in my opinion. And I think that genuinely somewhat answers the question that we had from I Know F1, who asked that Norris lost because he lacked experience. Put DR in a similar situation and he would know how to bring it home. This is something Norris needs to learn in order to be a race winner. I think that would be a bit harsh considering how the circumstances were. And also answering Lenia's question. And it's such a pleasure to see Lenia sending in her questions all the time. She's such an avid listener. Lenia, thank you for the support. And she's asking, why did Lando not listen? Just a case of that, just a case of the gut. And coming to that point, Kunal, Lewis Hamilton also said that he thought that staying out was the right decision. The instinct was the same between a 7-time world champion and Lando, who's actually hunting for his first win. You can't blame him for the instinct, just that he went away with his own decision. Fine, happens. But every good story needs a certain amount of tragedy. Look at how George Russell bounced back from Sakir. This is literally the same parallel situation. Can you really blame them for that loss? Can you blame George for Sakir? Can you blame Lando for this one? To a degree, but not that much. And look at how resilient George has become after that race. Look at how much different he is. In fact, we will speak about him a little bit towards the end of this episode because he's, of course, gotten more points for Williams. But the point is, this will just be a growing experience. And what is a good story without a little bit of tragedy in the middle, right? That's just how it is for Lando Norris. But if you have to remember one thing about Lando from this race, don't remember the ill-fated decision. The fact that he was able to keep Lewis Hamilton behind for so long in the lead up to those last 4 laps, Kunal, we genuinely couldn't tell if Lewis was actually going to get ahead. And that from such a young driver is just tremendous.
And that coming from a McLaren, Mercedes customer team, I think it was either way, the win was on for Lando Norris. And yes, tragedy, you put it really well. It was tragic to see Lando Norris spin and then lose those seconds. And, what an epic 100th race win for Lewis. But before we sort of still move on, just some more thoughts on Lando. I mean, everyone's being harsh. Everyone's trying to say he was entitled. He said no to the team, etc. There are so many times that drivers just disagree and do what they want, and yes, the team needed to sort of give him more information, be more assertive, etc. But even the team knows that the driver knows the conditions the best. Somebody like Daniel Ricciardo said on his radio, and I was on the radio channel, guys. Okay, so I literally watched the race with every driver's radio, right? Daniel Ricciardo said it's actually better where I am, and this is when he was driving around the last 5 laps, than where you are, where you are, which was the indication to the team that it's probably drier where it was in the pit lane. So all in all, great learnings for Lando, fantastic entertainment for all of us, and just goes to show that this is exactly what we love about Formula One. And yes, I'm sure Lando's going to bounce back. He's been the story of the season, and he will continue to be one, hands down, my driver of the day, even though he got the decision wrong, Soumil.
Yeah, seriously. As I said at the start, give him a hug. Maybe give him some milk as well. I think he likes that quite a fair bit.